This is Keys to the Shop, episode 419, Behaviors that Drive Great Management Cultures. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I am your host for the show, and I'm so excited to have you along this journey. It has been 6.5 years of Keys to the Shop. We're still going strong, 2.5 million downloads of the show worldwide, and it's just so thrilling to see how far this information gets and how it's impacted so many of your lives. And I'm so thankful for people that have left reviews about the impact of the show over on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Also, people who reach out and just let me know like how the show has impacted them. It's so helpful and motivating. So thank you all for that. I just wanted to say up front. Now, you really should be subscribed to Keys to the Shop. If you are not, then you could miss out on great content. It just takes one episode to shift your thinking, to give you that insight that makes a big difference. And all you have to do is hit subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And by the way, in September, big news, launching key holder coaching groups with an inaugural group of 5 coffee business owners and myself. I'll be hosting these meetings. It takes place over 6 months, 2 meetings per month, about 2 hours per meeting, accountability, conversation, insights. We get to challenge each other and benefit from perspective in this small group setting. And in all of my years of consulting and coaching and conversations with people at trade shows, it's just that kind of environment that makes such a big difference. Email Chris at keystotheshop.com or send me a DM on Instagram at keystotheshop, and I will get you the application to be considered for this inaugural group. It'll be the first of many, I'm sure, of these coaching groups. So go ahead and reach out again if you're interested in the key holder coaching group. Chris at keystotheshop.com. Now, speaking of collective knowledge and insights making a big difference, when we get together as a community and we make our desire for innovation known, the market will respond. And one of these companies that has come around to really offer us a more consistently excellent coffee experience in our coffee shops is the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer from the folks at Voga Coffee. The Ground Control Brewer uses SCA award-winning technology to give you control over an incredible range of flavor and extraction capabilities of your coffee. It sets your batch brew coffee on another level entirely. And it's not just amazing batch brew, but it also batches iced lattes, cold brew, it makes tea. The technology allows you to do all of these things in one machine. So it not only sets you apart in terms of quality, but also efficiency and channels for profitability. So check them out at groundcontrol.coffee to learn more about this wonderful piece of equipment. If you're looking for quality, if you want to raise your game and have your customers truly experience a quality cup like no other, then I think that you should be using a Ground Control Cyclops brewer in your shop. Go ahead and check them out over at groundcontrol.coffee. You know, one of the things I do at Coffee Fest is I do head judging for the Coffee Fest Latte Art World Championship Open. And one of the things I love to see is the artistic expression of baristas. Baristas want to be, proud of every drink they create. And when you have great ingredients, including with plant-based beverages, you are setting people up for success. And that's why I really enjoy the Barista Series from Pacific. The Barista Series is a line of plant-based performance beverages that is designed for baristas. It is tested by some world-class baristas before any of their beverages make it to your counter, so it performs exactly how it should. Stands up to the heat from steaming, produces that latte art ready texture, and it's balanced. The taste focuses on the coffee. It doesn't overwhelm. It's perfectly balanced. It's great. So reach out to them. pacificfoodservice.com. Get samples. Again, if you're looking for the best plant-based beverages, then you should be using the Barista Series from Pacific. Okay, everybody. Well, today it's you and I we are going to have a conversation about the same topic that I talked about in the latest shift break, where I was talking about focusing on manager culture. And the plea in this shift break was that we would consider that, hey, we need to marshal our efforts. We need to focus on this rather unfocused on, if that's a word, or neglected. That's a better word. Neglected area in the coffee bar. We focus so much on the baristas, and that's great, and you need to be. This is absolutely necessary, but at the same time, what about the culture in leadership? In fact, when you lose a manager, when you lose somebody who's a trainer who held a high position, a lot of times the reason that person leaves is burnout. They are abandoned by the owners to their own devices, and then they're scolded for doing things wrong when they weren't given instruction. We have got tons of episodes about this. Leadership abandonment syndrome, how to manage managers, training your trainers, how to train your managers. There's a lot of episodes that you're going to find in the show notes, by the way, that you should listen to. I think it's worth your time to follow up with this episode, with those episodes as you can. And I always really hope that people use Keys to the Shop as a reference catalog for topics relevant to what you're going through. And of course, I want you to listen to each episode that comes out, but as a reference, there are tons of episodes that cover great topics to give you a multifaceted view of an issue, and this is one of them. Of course, we talk about leadership and management a lot because with authority comes great responsibility, and that responsibility is to sort of budget our time and energy responsibly. So if you're an owner, or if you're a GM or somebody like that, or if you're just an influential manager in a team of managers, you could even use this conversation today as a catalyst for making change in your company so that you can actually take the idea that, yeah, we should focus on our manager culture and actually do it and actually make it happen. And really the first step is to determine ground rules for what it means to actually have a manager culture. And the first thing that I think you really should be focused on is that while we have our individual responsibilities, especially on a team where we can silo ourselves, where the parts don't really communicate unless they absolutely have to, or there's a crisis. That's usually like the conversation we have with back of house versus front of house and that kind of stuff. We don't talk unless we have to, and when we do, it's usually full of stress and tension. And that's because there's no thought really being given to how we can create harmony and regular communication in the off season and when things are going well. Same thing is true when you've got managers of different cafes, you've got a trainer, you've got yourself, maybe you have a GM, or you have that, if you have all of those things and that's the size of your business, your people need to not think of themselves as individual contributors, but as part of a team. And that needs to be kind of drilled in from day one, that the brand is all of this together. We are greater than the sum of our parts. This is your cafe, that cafe, the roastery, the online shop, wholesale. Altogether, it creates a complete picture of what this brand is. And you can see when these places don't talk to one another because you experience a different culture in each cafe, a different culture in each expression of the business. And it feels weird and you don't know how to express that. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but usually it's because the leadership team is not so much of a team. It's just a cobbled together group of people who have been given glorified administrative duties and are kind of in survival mode in their own areas. That's kind of the norm. So starting out by saying, yes, we have our individual areas of focus, but we are also responsible for connecting to each other on a regular basis through meetings, yes, but also in mental preparation, that we are not just serving our shop, but we are looking out for the benefit of the other. We have an others focused and externally focused mindset. So it's not just always, how can I get what I want out of this meeting? It's, how can I contribute to this team? How can I contribute to my coworkers and my peers who are also managing? If you're a trainer, how can you contribute to the managers? And if it's just you and the owner, then the same thing applies. This spirit of mutuality that says, yeah, we have individual contributions that we are responsible for, but when we serve each other, we serve the whole, and we create more continuity between those parts so that people who experience one cafe to the other, they get the trickle down, the downstream impact of those things. And that is consistency. That is seeing values that are common and that feel is there. Because we always worry about that, don't we? We always worry about, I want to make sure that the culture is the same in all of my cafes or my drive-thrus or my stands. And the way that we do that is we unify the group of people that are largely responsible for those expressions so that when that expression happens, they are expressing something common because that culture between managers has been paid attention to. It has been curated. And I have a few things that I think need to be cornerstones. And you're going to have probably some things that are ground rules and values, behaviors that you want your staff to have. But these are my suggestions to start you out, okay? First, you're going to have this conversation with your managers to say, this is what we're focusing on. You could have them listen to this episode and verbatim say, this is what we need because we're all busy. We're all a million miles an hour in different directions. And when we don't talk, miscommunication happens. And try as we might to fix this from the other direction, if we don't put the horse in front of the cart, then we really just aren't going anywhere here. So one of the first things seems obvious, and that's humility. Humility is a prerequisite to how you treat other people. Even if you think you do a better job as a manager at your cafe, you could always be better at your job. And somebody who doesn't do as good of a job as you may still have an insight about an issue you're having that you will be tempted to dismiss because look who it's coming from. The fallacy of origin. Like if it's coming from them, then I don't want to hear it. What if it's true? And you miss out on the opportunity to get insight that'll help you in your job, right? But also, if you don't have humility and you think you're all high and mighty and you're the best manager on the team and all this stuff, or I'm better than the owner, you also don't really find yourself being generous. You become a little bit more stingy. You become a little bit more closed off. And when you get that way toward your peers, inevitably, I see it so much. I've done this myself, okay? You get that way towards your baristas as well. And that pride is not a good look. It's ugly. People see it and they're like, who do you think you are? You can have pride in your work. You can be grateful. You can be excited. You can be passionate. You can be all those things. But pride in a negative sense means you are basically saying, I'm better than you. And that is my security, which is also your excuse for not contributing, withholding, or not receiving. Now, if you're not contributing, you're withholding, and you are not receiving, how good of a manager do you think you really will be, right? And then all these people go and try to start their own coffee shops too. And they find that they weren't really practicing the values that they wanted to see others practice because they were giving themselves an excuse out of pride to not practice them themselves, okay? So we have to get over ourselves. We have to come with humility, and we serve our peers. We serve people. This is what we do. And even if you're not working the bar, it's still service. It's still hospitality. And so humility, I think, is a prerequisite and a cornerstone of management culture, admin culture, one to the other. This is like a layer of the business that needs to be focused on. And so if you decide that that's what you want to do, then the next step would be you need to seek out ways to support and uplift your fellow managers. And I'm not just talking about people who manage the exact same thing as you. I'm talking about the kitchen manager, the assistant baker, the trainer, the wholesale manager, the cafe manager. I don't know what the semantics are for you, but let's just say, how can I support and uplift my coworkers? Now, think about an environment where everybody is supportive and uplifting. Uplifting means you know that we are fallible, weak human beings. We have strengths, we have weaknesses. And when there are weaknesses, we want to know that people have our back. Just as much as when you're a barista, you don't want the boss to be like always thinking you're stealing and always being on the side of, whatever an accusation is, never giving the benefit of the doubt or always assuming the worst, right? That doesn't feel good. That you're not being uplifted. You're not that's not somebody using their strength to help you in your weakness. That they're more like against you than for you. And if we determine that we are going to support and uplift each other, it creates more opportunity for us to innovate systems and culture and communication in a way that does that. Instead of finding ways to get out of doing those things, we find ways to do those things. Something simple as listening can be a very good first step. Something just as simple as determining that you will give somebody a charitable assumption in the midst of a hard time. And you are there for them. You can express it directly. I know that sometimes it might seem sappy, and sometimes because we are frustrated with somebody that we are working closely with, even when we have the inclination to say something positive, it feels wrong for us to say it because we're still kind of pissed. We're still a little bit upset. I would say that. And I mean, this happens all the time with your significant other or, with your friends. And it's like, you're not really happy that you withheld that. So use the opportunity when you get the inclination to do something that will uplift and support your peers to do so. Obey that urge and innovate ways where support and uplifting is the common value. Now, if you're in charge of putting this in place as an owner, I think you have the ability to set these out as a list of things and say, hey, everybody, just as much as we have values for our business, these are some applications of those values within our group, our culture of management and leadership that helps curate and serve the culture of the baristas and the customers. So as we go through these things, make sure that you understand these aren't things we're wishing for. This is an initiative that needs to be written out, presented, refined, and then we need to commit ourselves as a team to walking this out better and better. And you're not going to be, if you're the listener to this episode who brings this up, it can't be that this is implemented solely by you. I think collaboratively it needs to be brought up, right? And it needs to be initiated. Because just like systems, they need to be a living document and they are a co-created document. I think that this is the same thing. Now, here's another value in a behavior that really contributes to a great manager culture, and it is to pursue understanding. Now, here's why that really is a rich phrase. Let's break it down. Pursue understanding. Pursue means that you are hunting for deeper knowledge with the assumption that you don't have all the knowledge. You don't have all the information. You could be wrong. It's not that person withheld your portion of the inventory at their cafe because they hate you. Maybe it's because something happened in the bathroom that really was stressful for the entire cafe. Maybe it's something happened with that person's family. Now, maybe you've been down this road where you've concocted a bunch of negative assumptions about somebody only to find out that there was something tragic or understandable that happened. And now you're left with your own thoughts going, ooh, I really didn't give them much grace, did I? And I didn't pursue understanding. I wasn't really curious about, what's behind this? Why is that? And we don't even want to ask people directly. So if somebody does withhold your portion of the inventory from their shop, let's say you're delivering everything to one shop because your supplier is close to that shop, and then they are the ones who kind of, deliver it to all the rest of the cafes. Hypothetical, not saying that that's best or whatever, it could and does happen. If you're not happy with the way things are going, you could just ask the question, of course, not with pride and angst, take some deep breaths, drink some chamomile tea, do some yoga, and then say, hey, I was just curious why, this happened, or I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can figure out a solution for the future, if there's something happening that needs to be changed, or there's a system that we can put in place. These are things that are born from a mindset that wants to pursue understanding, because once you do get understanding and information about the context of any kind of issue, then you'll be able to find great solutions, right? Otherwise, you're just making accusations and assumptions, and that does not build a great management culture, does it? It doesn't build anything, really. It tears down. So pursue understanding. I think that's really critical. And not only that around problems, but maybe also pursuing understanding about people and their positive attributes as well. Pursuing means I want to make a study of maybe what's going right with that shop. You have in your mind that one of your coworkers or your peers is not doing a good job. I challenge you, just like they would do in school, like say 5 nice things about Johnny. Go to their shop and look and see how they're doing some great things, and what are they doing with their staff. It is good. Are you on the hunt for that, or do you just want that to be done by your boss to you? Are you doing that for your staff? Now, again, this trickles down. This stuff is, if you're not pursuing it within these relationships, this is something that will not be pursued really within the barista relationships. And guess what? Poor service experiences and customer experiences will happen as a result of not addressing these things in your management culture. Now, after the pursuit of understanding, you get what I just kind of hinted at, which is collaborative solutions. Collaborative solutions means we work together to create something that we can all abide by, or that will help you as an individual. This is why I love manager meetings. It's why I love when there's a product created that benefits everybody. We are in that meeting probably doing all of these things. We come together with humility, with the idea to support and uplift. We pursue understanding, and then we create collaborative solutions together for things that already at this point we've explored, and it might be not in one meeting. It might take a couple or a few conversations, but now collaborative solutions are taking into account all of the departments. So we're not just saying, hey, the first idea is the best one, let's just do that. And by the way, it's getting late, so let's just go ahead and choose. And then only to find out that it completely screws over the kitchen or the baristas or or the back of house or whatever, because we didn't pursue understanding. But it wasn't collaborative. We didn't look at how the different departments overlap by talking with the people who are responsible for those departments. And as a result, the solutions need to be retooled. And our desire to create solutions goes further and further down, the less effective those solutions are. So you kind of screw up one system or solution, and then you're like, let's go back and try to fix it. And then you try to fix it with the same methodology that you implemented it before, and it continues to kind of get messed up. So now people are just like, you know what? Time to isolate, time to get in survival mode. We tried, and it's because some of this stuff is missing that it might not be working. So if your management team is dedicated to providing collaborative solutions rather than just solutions that are self-serving or myopic, not informed, then you're going to find your company is able to move forward faster, and you gain more leverage and momentum because you're not constantly ruminating on these problems that should have been solved a while ago, but there was all sorts of schisms in the management culture. Now, the last thing that'll help establish a great management culture is the behavior of mindful actions and communication. So kind of to wrap it all up, if we say mindful actions and communication, what we're talking about is considering the whole when we're communicating the part. Considering ourselves, so it's that humility, support, understanding, collaboration in our communication before we send that email, before we say what we're going to say to our staff about why this change happened, and we throw everyone under the bus to make ourselves look good because we didn't vote for it, but we got to do it. Before we do that, we take a step back and say, hey, let's meditate on this. Let's think about this. What is it that's going to yield the best result? That is in the stillness of that moment between thought and action. That is mindfulness in your actions and communication. It's a lack of mindfulness in our communication that really gets us in trouble. It is taking opportunity, we'll call, this is me just being candid, or I'm being real, I'm being authentic. And really what it is I'm just emoting, I'm just venting, and I'm just like letting loose. I'm not in control. And ultimately, I definitely have done this in my career. It doesn't end well because you put people on the defensive when you do that. When you don't take responsibility for your own emotions in the moment and do so in a way as a service to other people. Now, you might be a meek and mild-mannered person. However, I have seen even the most meek and mild contribute to toxicity, to misunderstanding, to shutting people down, because their actions and communications are the opposite of mindful. They're me-ful. They're full of like therapeutic catharsis via words, via actions, passive aggression, and that kind of stuff. That's the opposite of mindful. It's not hospitality. To have mindful actions and communication within your team, and to practice the rest of these, humility, support, and uplift, and practice collaborative solutions. All 5 of these things are, I think, necessary in your culture. And if you hold each other accountable to it and say, these are the things that we want to pursue together, then we can help each other. We can say, let's look at this through the framework of our shared our shared dedication. We all thought that this was really good. Now, this means you might need to mediate a little bit, and it's not going to be easy necessarily, but I don't know how you could really argue with these things. But I do think that the next step is, once you've implemented them, is to actually say, for our coffee shop, what are some really practical things for each of these values and behaviors that we can look at that happen in our stand, in our drive-thru, in our cafe, in our brick and mortar? Your shop is going to be different than anybody else's because your collection of human beings are different than anybody else's. The history of your coffee shop, your customers, the intersection of the menu and the services, all of that stuff creates a unique expression that will never be repeated in the world. And because of that, you need to tailor these things to your situation and make the application of it very practical and real world. Or else it just stays conceptual and you just listen to another podcast and, oh, wait, good for us. We listen to a podcast. But what does that mean? How do we apply it? That is the next step there. And so take these 5 things, think about them, and start yourselves as a team down the road of unifying your culture around values that make you better at serving each other while you're serving the whole and ultimately serving your community. So that is what I have for you today. I hope that you found this really helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, or feedback about today's conversation. And these are the kinds of things that I talk with people a lot about, especially when I do workshops for managers, whether they are virtual workshops for your management team or in person. I've done both. They've been great. And that is just one of the things that has been really helpful during these workshops. So speaking of workshops, I do want you to realize that one of the best opportunities for training, for networking, for fellowship with other like-minded professionals, learning from one another peer-to-peer is at Coffee Fest trade shows. CoffeeFest.com is where you can learn more about this 30-year-old event that over these decades has been providing trainings, workshops, lectures, discussions, all sorts of things. Things that I do at Coffee Fest. I go to all the shows, do workshop and lectures and that kind of thing. And I really want to see you there at this. I want to see you and your team because it really helps energize, it helps equip for success in specialty coffee retail. Go to coffeefest.com to learn more about Anaheim, California, coming up very soon in August. And then in November, we have Orlando, Florida. And you can use the code KEYS, KEYS, to get 50% off your registration when you go to coffeefest.com and sign yourself and your team up for general admission. 50% off using KEYS as a code. And again, I will be hopefully meeting you at Coffee Fest. Check them out at coffeefest.com. And with that, that is the end of our episode, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time again to listen. And I hope that you are able to subscribe to the show and share these episodes, especially on social media, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, wherever you have your network of people. It helps the show immensely. Share it with your friends, your family, your team. Share it with your favorite librarian. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.